These are all the video games in the Scooby-Doo franchise. I played every single one of them. The good, the bad, and the zoinks. Since its introduction in 1969, Scooby-Doo took over TV in the 70s, so it was only a matter of time before he ended up on the consoles of kids around the globe. But it took all the way until 1983 for Scooby to get his own game, Scooby-Doo's Maze Chase on the Intellivision. This is a mostly forgotten console produced by Mattel, and sure enough, this game is also produced by Mattel Electronics. And this is just kind of Pac-Man. Scooby runs around chasing these ghosts that look more like clan members, and you're on the run from this chomping skull. Okay, now picture what kind of music you'd expect to really set the mood with all these ghosts and evil skulls and stuff. Were you thinking some type of heavy metal or a jazzy version of the theme song? Yeah, well, you're wrong. It's actually Johann Sebastian Bach. Hell yeah. You get 10 levels in this, and you can even make your own, so that's pretty cool. Since this is a game ranking, I've got to have some kind of arbitrary ranking system, so we're going to rate all the games out of 100 Scooby Snacks. And we're starting off with a solid 20 Scooby Snacks here. Not the best, but we've got plenty more to come. By 1986, Scooby's a household name, so he takes after all the superstar artists and goes self-titled for a second gaming affair. Scooby-Doo 1986 is a side-scroller beat-em-up released for the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64. Basically, the rest of the gang get kidnapped, and you have to beat all the baddies to release them from these little jars. Don't ask why they're in there. You've got ghosts, little bouncy clown guys, these floating yokai things, and whoever this portly chap is. After you release the gang, you can just keep going and collect these mad scientists infinitely. Apparently this had a lot of trouble during production, mainly that their original idea was too ambitious for the Spectrum to handle. Yeah, surprise surprise. So they changed it and we got this. And it's fine. The Commodore version does look a little bit better though. Now, I've never been a beat 'em up main, but I still think this will get 25 Scooby Snacks. Now we're jumping to 1991, and the Scrappy virus even made it to the games. And this genuinely might be the most interesting one in the video. There's not one, not two, but 3 different versions that I found, and they're all so different. We stay with the ZX Spectrum, which, yeah, still doesn't look great, but it's not the worst thing. Level up to the Commodore again, and we finally start to see some graphic improvements. And then we get to the Amiga version, and oh my god, this is so cool. Shaggy and Scooby get chased away by the Grim Reaper and leave poor little Scrappy behind, and we play as him trying to find his friends. It's pretty clear that the most care went to the Amiga version. I mean, look at the end screen when you beat the game, like, yay, Scrappy, you did it! And now, compared to the end of the Commodore version, congratulations, the end. Also in the Amiga version, you get to fight a dragon, while the others you just walk to the door and that's it. 70 Scooby Snacks for the Amiga version, and 15 for the others. Scooby-Doo Mystery is a 1995 game for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. And we've got another case of 2 versions being drastically different. Probably doesn't help when the publishers of the SNES version go bankrupt, but that's fine. The Sega version has half as many levels as the SNES version, and it's also just a point and click where you go around finding stuff to help you find more stuff. In the first level you need this medallion and you get chased around by this hair metal rocker, and in the final battle Scooby just gets infinitely chased while you fumble around the controls. The other level is a fun little carnival with this clown that you can play bumper cars with. Oh, I've stumbled upon actual peak. At one point I traded this kid an actual handgun for some carnival tickets. I asked the fortune teller the meaning of life and she literally exploded, which allowed me to take her head as an inventory item, which of course I used to guilt trip the roller coaster guide into letting us ride because my girlfriend had an accident. It truly was a wild experience. The SNES version is another side-scroller with 4 levels and bosses with some minigames mixed in sometimes. One of them's a whack-a-mole with ghosts and sometimes the gang, and the other's a sandwich stacker. You don't even really fight the bosses. You run away and the gang hit the lights and tie them up. Okay, cool. At one point Fred stared directly into my soul, and Daphne ditched her iconic purple look for this, dried blood color. In the end screen for beating the game, she wisened up a little bit at least. Honestly, it might be because I prefer puzzle games over platformers, but I had way more fun with the Sega version. 50 Scooby Snacks there, and 38 for the SNES version. Scooby-Doo Mystery of the Fun Park Phantom is a 1999 PC game from Engineering Animation, the better EA, and South Peak Interactive. And this basically acts like an episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? We're driving around and the van conveniently breaks down right where the mystery is. So the gang split up and search the park for clues. And of course I chose Shaggy to be lore accurate. And you know how the show will never show you the boring stuff like walking from clue to clue? Yeah, well, strap in because you gotta do that here. You find a bunch of clues for each suspect, but only one of them will have all 3. Then you gotta find all the trap pieces too, because I guess Fred and the girls couldn't help out. And the culprit did all this to get land so they could build the shopping mall. So typical Scooby affairs going on here. It's a little boring, nothing chases you around or anything. The scariest thing might be the creepy clown you could talk to, but he just looks like he's ready to go home. Me too, buddy. 40 Scooby Snacks. Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers is a pair of games that are seemingly unrelated to each other, but both were published by my childhood goat THQ for the N64 and the Game Boy Color in 2000 and 2001 respectively. We'll start with the Game Boy version, which is based off the Season 2 premiere of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? Nowhere to Hide. See? Look at them. We follow each of the gang this time as we try and solve the case of Jekyll and Hyde, with Shag and Scoop sticking together, Daphne and Fred going off as per usual, leaving Velma all on her lonesome. At one point she loses her glasses and it looks like she'd rather be put down. What's happening here? Once we capture Hyde, we end off with a fart joke. Cool. I know we're limited by the hardware here, but these handheld games just have such boring gameplay mechanics. Hopefully the N64 version can help us out here. Aw, hell yeah, now that's more like it. This one has 4 levels to it, based on What a Night for a Night, That's Snow Ghost, and A Tiki Scare is No Fair, with the last level being a completely new idea. And these level designs are really just so much fun. You can run around to your heart's desire and just really take it all in. Until you run into the monster and then you shit yourself trying to run away. Them boys are fast and the camera does not help either. It's a fixed camera, so if you've ever played some of the original Resident Evil games, you know the deal here. But it's just as wonky here. But I was begging for some fun gameplay, and I got it in small portions, so I can't complain too much. 48 Scooby Snacks for the Game Boy version, and 77 for the N64 version. Given that Scooby-Doo is typically aimed for children, it seems only natural that we get some of those terrible educational games that you'd play in the computer lab instead of learning how to type. So, here comes Scooby-Doo Mystery Adventure, a CD-ROM game from the Learning Company in 2000. And it's another point-and-click game. Kinda. There's some minigames mixed in here, which are a little bit more fun, and 3 difficulties to really up that gamer factor. We've got 3 cases in one here, the first one being Showdown in Ghost Town with the Faceless Rider. Basically, you collect 5 clues along the way to find out who the culprit is, and you can play horseshoes, build an eldritch deity, and cream pie the villain. Wait, what? Phantom of the Night sees us go to medieval times. Except it's more like the place than the time period. Shaggy serves up some beers, and we help this woman clean up dishes. And when she's off balance, she is just serving. Love her. And Jinx at the Sphinx has the gang go to Egypt to help Velma's cousin. Textile matching game, historical monument, tallest to shortest thing, and playing a little tune with these bottles. These are relatively fun for about 15 minutes, but each of them take about 45. They also look like they're in that Nickelodeon 3D Movie Maker type engine, so everything looks so odd and out of place. 19 Scooby Snacks. Okay, now we're getting into the fun stuff. I'm such a sucker for video game tie-ins to movies. Scarface, The Godfather, The Thing, some of the greatest movies of all time, and they had PS2 games? Oh, can't forget Barnyard either. Hell yeah. But what if I told you that one of the best Scooby-Doo movies was based on the game? Yeah, Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase was actually a game first. Sure, only by a couple of days, but still pretty cool. One version released on the PS1, and is pretty much a Crash Bandicoot clone that, with a little tomfoolery, looks pretty decent all things considered. Okay, now let's check out the Game Boy Advance version. Yeesh. Right. Okay, but honestly, this is a lot of fun. We get to go through iconic levels from the movie and defeat each of the bosses just like the gang do. The PS1 version has us go through Japan, ancient Rome, the Arctic Circle, prehistoric jungle, big city, Egypt, and then finally the amusement park where we finally defeat the Phantom Virus. Who looks pretty silly in comparison to his movie counterpart, but that's okay, hardware limitations. Speaking of, the Game Boy version starts us off in the lab, which I actually prefer. But the gameplay is way worse. A lot of auto-scrollers and platforming and less actual, skill. I mean, you can pretty much just tank infinite hits and beat everything. At least the sprites look pretty fun. 48 Scooby Snacks for the Game Boy Advance version, and 72 for the PS1 version. Scooby-Doo, the motion picture, the game. Okay, so I know I went on that whole spiel about how I love video game tie-ins for movies. Well, I lied. This video game version of the 2002 live-action movie is like 2 hours of fetch quests. We're still on the Game Boy Advance, but we've unlocked 3D worlds, just at the cost of the cute sprites from before. Everybody looks like they were drawn with astigmatism, like full Gaussian blur added. There's a lot of questionable hitboxes, both on the player and on objects. The combat is pretty awful, and it doesn't even come close to following the plot of the movie. There's a whole new baddie called Master Monster Mind. You just kinda run around Spooky Island helping everybody. Daphne at least gets her purple go-go boots, so that's at least some bonus points. Plus, one of the first people you talk to is named Brad the Goth, and he has that hair. You know the one. I really just didn't have much fun here. 7 Scooby Snacks. But I can't say the same about our next one. Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights is an absolute classic. Developed by Heavy Iron Studios and released in 2002 for the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube, this is absolutely the Scooby-Doo game to play. The gang get kidnapped by the Mastermind, voiced by Tim Curry, and you play as Scooby to run through levels of villains seen in the first couple of shows to rescue them. The gameplay is more challenging, but still super fun. I mean, sure, it's a Metroidvania style game, they're a dime a dozen, but you get some nice power-ups to help you with some of the puzzle aspects and foes, and it genuinely feels good to beat a level that you get stuck on. This whole game feels like a giant love letter to the franchise. Classic music, iconic settings, and pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of Where Are You's opening sequence. And there's surprisingly a strong community around this one. I'm talking speedrunners, PC ports, and Nuzlocks, which I'm very glad to see people still keeping this one alive. If we're getting remakes of all those SpongeBob games, we might as well get one for Night of 100 Frights too. Easily the best game so far. 91 Scooby Snacks. Our third and final game for 2002 is another 3-pack of educational games from the Learning Company, and they're essentially the same as before. You get 3 difficulties to choose from, and because I'm such a hardcore gamer, I chose the ultra hard one this time. So, the one for like 8-year-olds. The first one is the Glowing Bugman, and has a mosaic matchup, a slide puzzle like we're on Survivor, and that one game where you move the traffic to get to the other side. The Scary Stone Dragon has the musical arrangement game, a Papa's Pizzeria type game where we make stir fry. So, Scooby's Walkeria? Actually, that makes it sound like he's sipping dirty, let's not go with that one. And Frights Camera Mystery has us build Scoob Evil Knievel, a course to save Daphne. A top-down karting maze game that I was totally good at and definitely didn't fall off and had to start over. And a normal platformer getting chased by the monster game. Everything is sufficiently okay. But I think I enjoyed these ones more than the first set, if only barely. 26 Scooby Snacks. Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem is the follow-up to Night of 100 Frights, released in 2004 for the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, plus an additional one for the Game Boy Advance. Obligatory graphics comparison. Yeah, still not the best. The plot's basically the same, and it plays about the same, as much as something on the Game Boy could at least. Shaggy joins Scooby this time, using this giant book to capture spirits and free each level. I mean, it's not that interesting of a combat mechanism, it's pretty much Luigi's Mansion, but slightly worse. You can pick up disguises and kinda stealth your way through levels, which is at least a little more fun. The only slightly difficult parts are this minecart section, and the first phase of the final boss where they shoot fireballs at you as you try and run around the garden with these ghosts. If you like Night of 100 Frights, you'll still probably like this one too. It'll get a solid 80 here. Since we had games for the first live action, of course we had to run it back for the sequel. Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, the game, was released in 2004 and had just 2 versions, for the Game Boy Advance and the PC. The Game Boy one looks pretty good, all things considered, but obviously the PC port is the main focus here. But where the 2002 ones were hardly based on the movie at all, this time we're following the plot basically beat by beat, starting at the Coolstonian Museum, over to Wickles Manor, and then following suit from there. So if you've seen the movie, you've played the game, and vice versa. Gameplay-wise, the PC version is kinda weird. It's a lot of minigames of varying levels of fun, but the most cursed part is having to buy disguises for Shag and Scoob, and Scooby just stares into your soul. Then you put pants on him and he becomes bipedal. Thanks for the nightmares. Also, the final boss battle is just a dance battle that is so cursed and stupid that it actually cycles back around to being camp and fun. Again, much like the movie itself. 50 Scooby Snacks for the Game Boy version, and 83 for the PC one. What can I say? I'm a sucker for this nonsense. Scooby-Doo Unmasked was released in 2005, and is pretty much the final of the Holy Trinity that THQ published, of course along with Mystery Mayhem and Night of 100 Frights. And looking at it, yeah, it's pretty much the same deal. Slight graphics upgrade, slight gameplay downgrade. Though it released on 5 consoles total, they all follow the same plot more or less. You play as Scooby and unlock these different outfits which give them special powers, and they're all sufficiently goofy. The Game Boy Advance version is your standard 2D platformer. The Gen 6 consoles are the expected 3D worlds, but I was most surprised with the DS version also being a 3D world. Sure, it's not the most fun to look at, and with the dual screen gameplay it can be kind of a headache, but that's kinda what you get with the DS. Look, this one includes my boy Zentuo, so I can't be that harsh on it, and the Scooby Super outfits keep the gameplay pretty fun. 52 for the Game Boy version, 66 for the DS version, and 72 for the other versions. Scooby-Doo Who's Watching Who from 2006 was released just on the Nintendo DS and the PSP, neither of which are that fun if we're honest. They look nice for being on a mid-2000s handheld, but that does hinder the gameplay aspect of these ones. The gang joined up with GSI, Ghost Scene Investigators, to solve some of the franchise's most iconic crimes. We've got Elias Kingston, Spooky Space Kook, and all of our other classic creeps. Oddly enough, both versions had some fun parts, and they both happened to include driving the mystery machine around. I was whipping around like no one's business. Also, maybe the Scooby fatigue was just setting in, but certain parts of these levels just felt super similar to older games. It was giving me some intense deja vu. These are fine for what they are, but still only reach like 35 Scooby Snacks in the grand scheme. Scooby-Doo and the Mystery of the Castle is a plug-and-play system that includes 5 games in one. We've got your normal 2D platformers, a standard isometric racing game, the side-scroller river hopping thing, and a dungeon crawler. Look, none of these are that great, but the real charm comes from the controller itself. I mean, look at this thing. This is peak design. Each of the games have just enough levels to have some fun with this for about an hour, but this technology is genuinely so much fun. I mean, you literally plug and play. Who thinks of this stuff? 57 Scooby Snacks for this one. Scooby-Doo First Frights was released in 2009 for the PS2, Nintendo DS, PC, and, of course, the Nintendo Wii. Now, of course, most Wii games kind of result in using my patent-pending gaming method, Shake That Shit, in which, and this is the hard part, you take the Wii remote and shake that shit, and you better put that safety strap on. We go wild over here. Also, these character models are pretty cursed. We get to play as the whole gang again, and each of them has some sort of fun power-up suit to help you out. Daphne's probably the most fun to play with. I will be spamming her kicks no matter what. All the ranged weapons are pretty OP, so you could probably just spam that instead, actually. If I were to compare this to another game series, it's probably closest to some of the LEGO games than anything else, so up to you if that's a positive or a negative. The DS version was my least favorite, surprise surprise. 34 Scooby Snacks. 56 for the PS2 and PC ports, and 63 for the Wii version. Scooby-Doo and the Spooky Swamp came out just 1 year later in 2010, for the same consoles as First Frights. And it's largely the exact same. Spoilers, but this is the final official Scooby-Doo game, and we go out like this? There's only 3 worlds, so you can beat this in like 3 or 4 hours even if you're bad at games like me. And the gameplay is even worse than before. You just run around from point to point to progress the story, and it's more of a collection book game than anything actually, fun. The bosses are pretty terrible and they all play the exact same. It's not a bad game, but it is a bad game to end the franchise with. I'm going with a solid 41 Scooby Snacks here. But just because that was the last official Scooby-Doo game doesn't mean that was the last one. Well, yeah, it does. But we've still got a couple more to talk about, otherwise I'd get comments that I forgot them, even if I purposely left them out. Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes Cartoon Adventure is a platformer for 2DS, 3DS, and PC, which sees us help the gang and the Toon Squad solve their cases and is decidedly not very fun. 10 Scooby Snacks. LEGO Dimensions is a 2015 game for PS3 and 4, Xbox One and 360, and the Wii U if you are one of like 7 people to own one of those. And it's just a LEGO game, they're all kind of the same. 37 Scooby Snacks. Multiversus is a 2024 fighting game with a bunch of Warner Brothers IPs. Or should I say, was. Yeah, this game's dead. It's delisted from all the stores and you can only play it offline if you have it in your library. Plus, they use the Ultra Instinct Shaggy meme. 0 Scooby Snacks. And the final not Scooby game that's simultaneously a Scooby game is House Flipper 2, with the Scooby-Doo DLC. It's fine. These simulator games are just kind of there to waste time. 12 Scooby Snacks. And with that, I've played and ranked every Scooby-Doo video game. Unsurprisingly, Night of 100 Frights was my favorite.
That's why he's the GOAT!
But which one's your favorite? Let me know down below. As always, shout out to my lovely patrons for all the great support. Head over there and watch new videos early and get some behind the scenes updates for as low as $1, and you can get your name on here with all these fine people. Next video has something to do with something I referenced in this one, so get the conspiracies going. But until then, bye!